On this YouTube channel, I've made countless videos talking about game developers, to game developers, even playing the creations of game developers, but today, I'm becoming a game developer. Well, not exactly today, actually it's been like 4 or 5 days, but, it sounded more dramatic that way. So today is Sunday the 3rd of May, and I have been spending the majority of my free time since April 29th working on my very first solo Unity project. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, it's pretty awful at this point. But I've finally gotten to a point with the game where I think I have enough content to make an interesting devlog, and as you guys know, I love to share my journeys on this channel with you guys, so I'm just gonna include everything that happened. A lot of it is probably gonna make you experienced game developers cringe inside, and be really embarrassing as far as my intelligence goes. I'm Sam from Bandsman Games, and if you're not yet subscribed to this channel, I make indie game related content 6 out of 7 days of the week, and I live stream at least once a week, so if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an upload. Also, if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below. I have not recorded the whole thing yet, but it's already been more hours than I've put into one video in my entire life, so if you wouldn't mind liking and commenting, that would be so appreciated by me. Now let's jump into my very first Unity devlog. Okay guys, let's jump into the story of how this game got started. So up until last Wednesday, I had almost zero game making experience in my entire life. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I got kind of into making games in Blender, and I never touched a bit of code over that time. All of my games were super crappy. More recently, a few weeks ago, I helped to create a game with my friend Blue from Cube Rhythms, which was a 2D simple ninja-based platformer. To be honest, I didn't do a whole lot of work on that project. I created all the sprites and animations for the ninja, and I programmed the turret's aiming script. Beyond that, I kind of gave up on the project and left him alone to complete it without my help. Guys, if you're looking for a partner on your next game project, it probably shouldn't be me. I was not a good partner. Alright, I'm gonna jump into how I came up with the concept for this game. So like I said before, I've been wanting to create a Unity game for a while, and I knew as it was going to be my first ever solo project, I needed to start fairly simple. A 2D game seemed like the obvious choice because 3D is absolutely terrifying. The first idea I had was to create an underwater game where you play as a pufferfish. My idea was to have a game mechanic where you could puff yourself up as the fish, which would make you float higher, but there was no way to deflate yourself, so if you came across a hole too small to get through, you would be stuck. And over time in my brain, that idea kind of reversed itself, and what I ended up going with was being a balloon man where you start full of air and you can expel air to propel yourself, but you only have a limited supply of air, and once you run out, you're out for good. Honestly, looking back, I should have gone with the pufferfish idea. It would have been a lot more professional and probably easier to make, and what I ended up with was, well, yeah. Alright, so let's hop into my first day of development on this game. Okay, so my master plan was to take a break and then come back and have it be seamless, but I ended up getting a haircut. So, yeah. Also, my shirt is different. Speaking of my shirt, streamelements.com/bandsmangames if you want to pick one up for yourself. But that's enough delaying this video. Let's jump into... So before I even hopped into a Unity project today, I started in a free photo editing software called GIMP and created a couple of balloon sprites. Once I had done that, I looked at my YouTube stats for some reason and then jumped into Unity. To start in Unity, I imported my balloon sprite, duplicated it, and added a rigid body and capsule collider to each one. My idea was to have these two balloons be the feet for my project. I also added a custom material to both of my feet with a little bit of friction and a lot of bounciness. Then I played the scene and the balloon fell very slowly. Looking back now, it's obvious to me why this happened. It was because I made the balloon unbelievably big for some reason, but at the time I counted it as my first win, and it was pretty exciting. At this point, I wanted to make my balloon feet super floppy so they'd be able to conform over the shape of things. I probably had 10 other way more important things to be worrying about, but that's what I decided to focus on, so I tried to look up some tutorials. I ended up finding out that making an object floppy is actually incredibly difficult in Unity 2D, so I decided that I would try to make the object bouncy instead. Turns out all I had to do to make an object bouncy is apply the bouncy physics material correctly to the rigid body, so I went ahead and did that. I wasn't sure what to set the bounciness factor to in the material, so I decided to start with 100, which was a big mistake. In the end, I ended up going with a factor of 1.25 for the time being, because it looked the most like an actual balloon. So for this project, I want there to be 2 different ways to move your character, and the first that I wanted to work on was actually inspired by a Nintendo Switch game called Safety First. I would highly not recommend that you guys go play that game, because, yeah. But anyway, I wanted to steal the same general concept from this game, where I would be able to use a controller, and each joystick would be mapped to a foot. So I went ahead and watched about an hour's worth of tutorials on mapping Xbox controllers in Unity, and I still managed to fail and not understand how to do it for about another half an hour after that. Like I said, guys, I am a total beginner. In the end, I did get a simple script working that would map the joystick positions to a variable in my script, but I had spent so long getting that done that I just couldn't stand sitting in front of the computer longer in order to actually make that influence the feet models, so I decided to take a break. Also, I will note that the right analog stick returned values that were 10 times smaller than the left analog stick. This was pretty easy to solve in code, I just added a multiplier, but if anybody knows why that's happening, I'd love to hear from you. I still haven't figured it out. When I came back from my quick break, I made this simple script, which allows me to add a force to the rigid body, which is controlled by the position of the joystick. As you can see, when I first tried it out, it was just a teeny tiny bit overpowered. I spent the next half an hour tuning values and making it work just right, and after I got that exactly right, I made the script be able to tell which foot it's applied to based on game tags and apply the correct stick values based on that. After a short break from the project, I hopped back into GIMP and created some long boon? What the heck is wrong with me? I hopped back into GIMP and created some long balloon sprites to use as the legs. After that, I imported the leg models into Unity, slapped some rigid bodies on them, slapped some colliders on, connected everything up with 2D hinge joints, and boom, I've got a walking something. Look at those legs! Those legs thick! But if you thought those legs were thick, just wait till you see this body. Have you ever seen anything thicker than that big round balloon body? Anyway, now that I had a balloon body in the game, it was time to implement my second form of movement. So for this form of movement, I wanted my character to be able to discharge a large quantity of air out of his crotch region. Yeah, it's definitely not farting. This is something different. It's not farting. It's sophisticated, okay? Okay? I expected the script to be a lot harder to make than it actually ended up being. After about 30 minutes, I ended up with a simple script that did the job really well. Basically, all my script does is gets the heading of the pelvis object, and when the A button is pressed on the controller, it adds a force along that heading. It also contains an air variable that starts at 100, and whenever you are discharging air, that variable is dropping at a fixed rate. At this point, I was feeling really good about my progress and really proud of how far I'd come, and then I watched a few hours of Bracky's tutorials and realized that everything I had accomplished was complete garbage. Okay, that's an overstatement. I liked the scripts that I had come up with, but I decided to completely redo my sprites and my body assembly. So at this point, I hopped into GIMP and created, if I do say so myself, this absolutely stellar character model. I think this looks 10, no, 100 times better than what I was working with before, and based on the tutorials that I had watched, I decided that the best way to put this into my game as a character was with inverse kinematics and rigging. I may or may not be misusing the term inverse kinematics, I don't really know. But at this point it was around 11 p.m. and I figured I should just go to bed and come at it with a fresh perspective tomorrow morning. Alright, so day 2. It's a new day for the game development, and it's also a new day for me, the narrator. You may have noticed I'm wearing different clothes again, and that is because a day has passed between the last time I narrated this game process. What am I saying? Oh my goodness. Anyway, I worked a lot on the game this day. In fact, I worked for almost 5 hours, but 4 of those hours were just spent on me watching endless amounts of tutorials and trying to get the rigging to work for my character. Now, every single tutorial I could find was from somebody that used Photoshop, so when they imported their file into Unity, it would automatically be split up into the correct parts. I did not have this luxury because I'm using a free software called GIMP. Also, some of the tutorials just straight up had options in the sprite editor that did not show up for me. I don't know what that was about, but this is probably really boring for you guys, so we're just gonna skip right to the end of it when I got it working. The only entertaining part of this entire process was probably when my character fell to the ground and exploded into a bunch of different really stretchy pieces, but after a long day of working at it, I finally got everything sorted out with 2D hinge joints, and my character was at least looking like he had a skeleton. So when I had finished rigging my character, I then applied the scripts from the previous day to the correct body parts, and to my surprise, it worked perfectly on the first try. At this point in the day, it was getting really late and I was feeling frustrated, so I just decided to work on something that I felt like would be a little bit more fun. So I decided to add in a particle system whenever the player discharges air to leave a trail behind, and, well, this is what I came up with. So, I decided to end it there and went to bed on day 2 with that horrifying image in my mind. Alright, so we're entering day 3, and at this point I'm really starting to feel like the project is coming together. Well, as much as a farting balloon man ragdoll can come together. Anyway, I forgot to hit record in the morning when I started working on the game, so I fixed the particle system off screen, which is probably all for the best because it was incredibly boring. At this point in the project, it is still my goal to get a great movement script banged out and some tactile feedback when you run out of air, so that I can throw my character into a level or a sandbox area and have everything working pretty well. So at this point, I went back into GIMP and created a sprite of my balloon head looking sad. Now, I'm sure I could do all kinds of fancy stuff where when I run out of air, my current balloon sprite turns into that one, but I honestly didn't want to deal with it, so I just scaled down the sad head and put it behind the happy head in the layer. So now when the happy head shrinks and gets to a smaller size, the sad head is sitting there. Now obviously at this point the camera is quite zoomed out, so when the sad head shows up, you can't see anything. So I added a section to my camera script that will make it zoom in on the player's head when he runs out of air. Yep, that was super quick. Definitely didn't spend 2 hours trying to get that simple script working. Nope, not this guy. No way. I also added a Game Master object, which will send everything into super slow motion when you run out of air, and I think that this is a really nice touch. Now that's all looking pretty well and good, and it's time for a short dinner break. When I came back, I did 2 things. Number 1, I forgot to turn my lights on, so enjoy looking at a solid black box for the remainder of this recording. Number 2, I watched a fascinating video by Jonas, which is a fantastic way to get your motivation up when developing games, and I was ready to hop back into the game. Now I wanted there to be a retry button in the game that would pop up after the camera zooms in, so since I love spending unnecessary amounts of time on things that really don't matter, I created a balloon retry button in GIMP. It was super simple to get the button to show up on the UI layer after I had zoomed in on the player, but for the life of me, I could not get it to be clickable. Seriously, I started this project at around 8 p.m. and by the time 11 rolled around, I still hadn't gotten this working. It was unbelievably frustrating. Oh my goodness, my microphone's in front of the wrong thing. Sorry about that, guys. That was in the wrong place. Alright, after a few hours of working on this issue, I realized that since this game is played with a controller, it would probably be better to map it to a controller button anyway, but it was super late at this point, so I decided to give up on it and leave it for the following day. When I started working on the project the next morning, I added an A button to my sprite, and with the help of my friend Brackies, I was able to get it to reload the scene in no time. Unfortunately, it wasn't resetting all the variables, but turns out I just had to define all my static variables. Seems weird, but it worked. At this point, there were still quite a few glitches left in the game, but I felt like it was time to create a sandbox level, so I hopped into GIMP and created this nice little skyscraper scene. I can't really call it a level 1 because you can beat it by flying straight up, but it is very useful for testing out the movement script and everything else. This is pretty much where I stopped work on the game and started making this devlog, but before I show you the completed sandbox mode with the movement, I just want to talk quickly about what I've learned and what's next for the project. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot a very, very important step in this process. I have to name the game. Well, I already kind of did name the game. And the name is Barry's Air. Okay, it kind of sucks. It definitely sucks a lot. So if anybody has a better idea for the project than Barry's Air, leave it in the comments. But for the time being, this poor fellow's name is Barry. Alright, so here's what I have left to do in this game. And to be honest, there's probably a ton more than what I have listed here, but this is just what I could think of to do off the top of my head. I need to create a bunch more levels, add some music and sound effects. I definitely need to improve the graphics of the game. I want to add some sort of enemy system or maybe a trap system that can damage the player. At some point I need to figure out how to control this game with a mouse and keyboard. I do think that the movement variables need to be tweaked and adjusted so that they're just a little bit better. And finally, I'm gonna post it to itch.io so all of you guys can share in my misery. Alright, now let's hop into the build and I will show you guys the sandbox level that I came up with. Alright, so here we are in the final build of the game. Let me just grab my controller. As you can see, I can move my feet around. I tried to tweak this movement script so I would be able to raise my foot in case I wanted to add in some sort of button mechanic or something later on, but not so much so that I'd be able to fly. So as you can see, I can float up a little bit, but as I lose power, I start to drift down again. As you can see, my farty boy script is working perfectly, and the head is shrinking in place. As I play this level, I actually am thinking of tons of other stuff that I need to take care of, like adding a main menu. Oh boy, that is not what I intended to do. As you can see, my favorite part of this level that I've designed is the crane, and the head shrinking mechanic is working pretty well. What I wanted to accomplish when tweaking these script variables was for the feet to be in there in order to aim the direction of the air discharge, but not so much so that you can actually move your character. As you can see, it looks a little bit weird at this stage as the head shrinks and the other head hasn't shown up yet. I just realized there's a glitch where the small head goes behind the billboard, so that's new. But as you can see, my retry button pops up, and I can restart by hitting the A button. So what have I learned from making this game? Well, I mean, I've learned a lot of things as far as Unity goes, but I think I may have even learned more from creating this devlog. I can't wait to see all the love and all the hate that I'm gonna get in the comments section for how bad I am at making games. So for this devlog, I worked on it for 4 days straight, and then I went over the recordings and tried to narrate everything. I think if I were to do this in the future, I might do it more like Zyger does, and at the end of every single work session, record a little snippet of me talking about what I did. It just might be a little bit more bite-sized and manageable at that point. So, let's just go into full screen here. If you enjoyed this devlog of me being super inexperienced, make sure to hit that big red subscribe button down below. There will be a lot more like this coming on the channel. I'm super excited to step into this journey with you guys. If you don't want to subscribe, that's completely okay. Just leaving a like or a comment on the video would be perfectly wonderful. If you want to be an absolute Chad or an absolute Susan, you can like, comment, and subscribe at the same time. but no pressure to do any of that. If you want to keep up with my community and me respectively, the places to follow are my Discord and my Twitter, and I will see you guys all for a very special Minecraft stream tomorrow. Bye bye.